Greetings all, BWS2K here, welcome back. I'm BWS2K, this is Scott Summers. You may remember us from last time. We did a sort of overview of Marvel Heroic role-playing and also some Cortex Prime, and then we did a bit of a playthrough. So this video is the second half of the playthrough. So we're not really going to talk too much about the rules. That sort of information is in the first video. This video is going to be the continuation of the story that we started then with Gambit, Psylocke, and Nightcrawler sort of being unexpectedly thrust into the alternate timeline, the alternate future where Sentinels rule North America, which is, generally speaking, kind of falls into the umbrella of the Days of Future Past arc, if you're at all familiar with that. It's kind of a dark dystopian thing, so I won't spoil too much, and if you don't know what that's all about, go watch the other video. Otherwise, we're going to pick up pretty much right where we left off. So thanks for watching, and let's get to it. Okay, so this is picking up right where we left off last time. I can zoom out a little bit. We've got our three characters, three heroes, Gambit, Psylocke, Nightcrawler. They were kind of playing cards. I think we went with crazy eights, and there may have been some cheating going on. You've got Gambit at the table, but you've also got Psylocke, who is a telepath. There's a little bit of a scuffle, and their mutant powers, all three of them sort of acted together and teleported them to the future, alternate timeline. And the scene that they came upon, it was nighttime, and he was sort of in some urban ruins, which looked vaguely familiar, like a Manhattan sort of a situation. But there was a Sentinel, an Alpha Sentinel, who is standing over, who is very similar to Sentinels that they have experienced or worked with before, worked against, fought, whatever, seen before, but slightly different. And there was kind of a gathering of sort of law enforcement, SWAT team looking folks, and they also had with them a mutant, what's called the mutant Hound, which is basically a mutant who has been brainwashed, but has some kind of telepathic or tracking abilities or something to find other mutants. So as the scene unfolded, Gambit took some stress. He kind of opened the attack against the Alpha Sentinel and didn't do so well with that. Ended up taking some stress. Nightcrawler and Psylocke kind of took a little bit more of a behind-the-scenes approach, covert approach, and between the two of them ended up completely stressing out the SWAT team, the anti-mutant SWAT team, by taking a confused complication and stepping it up past D12. Now, subsequently, I have learned that, and I had a question at the time too, if you remember, if when that happens, if that just takes out one team dice, or if that takes out the whole group of them. So I guess rules as written, the general consensus is that it's only supposed to take out one of those dice, which makes sense. They're a mob, and if you do enough stress, then it really only takes out one dice, and so it would be the same with complications. But I kind of just ran with it narratively, that they were kind of causing such a confusion, it took out the whole team, just because I think it tells a cooler story, as opposed to just grinding, trying to wear down this mob in some other way. We're kind of keeping it short and sweet in terms of the sort of tutorial walkthrough, playthrough situation. So that's where we're at. We had just finished, I believe it was our second round, and everybody has acted, so we're going to move everybody back to the need to act. And I think Psylocke was last to act on that last turn, so she's going to choose who goes next, which of course is me, whoever it is that I'm playing, which makes things interesting. You can see on the left I've got the say it, assemble it, roll it, resolve it, which, as a quick refresher, that's how you play Cortex Prime, that's how you play Marvel Heroic. You say what you want to do clearly, you pick the dice that help you do it, you roll it, and then you compare the results. You pick your total, you pick your effect die, you compare the results to your opposition. So the SWAT team is out. Gambit has some stress, but he also has a stunt die, D10, which basically means that on his turn he's going to get to use his powers in a special way, like that really kind of spotlights them, and add an extra D10 into his pool, but he has no plot points. Psylocke has 2 plot points, no stress, and Kurt has no stress and no plot points. I think that brings us all up to speed with the intro and with what we see here. So who are we going to have act first? We've got the Hound and the Sentinel left, both of whom have no stress. I keep looking back at that stunt die, so let's have Gambit go next. Now he was sort of behind a car, kind of. The enemies had seen him. The other two were kind of not so well seen, but they had seen Gambit, and he's kind of hiding behind a car. So I think he's going to take advantage of the fact that the SWAT team is all confused. Nightcrawler's bamfing all in amongst them. Psylocke's kind of messing with their heads a little bit. So they're out of the scene, but I mean they're still there, just kind of being confused. And I think Gambit's going to try to take advantage of that and maybe do another attack on the Sentinel in hopes that it's maybe going to turn out a little bit better than last time because he's got that stunt die. So the question then is, how are we going to use the stunt die? And my first thought is charging up his bow and throwing that. But of course, if he does that, then I don't have the bow for the rest of the scene. So is that really what I want to do? I think it would be a cool thing. And he doesn't have any plot points, but he's got the stunt. Let's do that. That sounds cool. That's the most obvious thing to me. We're not going to think too much about it. I don't think Gambit would think too much about it. So we're going to have Gambit kind of jump out from behind the car, sort of address the Sentinel in his Creole, Cajun, French, and I'm really good at accents if you didn't watch the first video. So he's going to say something like, don't pay attention to them, mon ami. Pay attention to the real threat. And he's going to open up his bow, like it's a telescoping bow, right? Shink! And he's going to charge it up, and he's going to throw it like a javelin right at the Alpha Sentinel, hoping to do some physical stress. Now, even though it's not on their card, they do have the different stress tracks for physical stress, emotional stress, and mental stress. It's just not in that red box. That's them. So we're going to assemble our dice pool for Gambit here. He is acting solo, so he gets his solo die. And I'm going to use the Urban Ruins as a D4. This is one of the scene distinctions. I'm going to use it as a D4 for two reasons. One, I'd like to get him a plot point. That's a little bit of a mechanical reason. But the second reason is he's jumping out in the open. So whereas before he had some protection behind the rusted out car, he is now kind of in the open. The Urban Ruins, it's not really helping him much. He does have the 3 distinctions on his sheet, but that feels like the first thing that makes sense to me. So we're going to go with a 1d4 there. And we're going to throw a plot point onto his data file. And so that's affiliation, that's distinction. Now we go for power, so we're going to go Energy Blast, which is a D10. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit. Go back to where we can read things a little bit. Energy Blast is a D10. You know, the area attack, I wasn't even thinking about the area attack, but I suppose that could work too. You know, kind of hitting both of them. But more importantly, because I still have in my mind that I want to have that sort of showdown between Psylocke and the Mutant Hound, I'm not going to do area attack with Gambit, but I will do the Unleashed again. And this time, I will remember, if I fail, then I add a D10 into the Doom pool, which is only at a 3d8 right now. I messed that up last time. So we've got a 1d10 for Energy Blast. And then the Unleashed SFX says step up Energy Blast for 1 action. So we're going to make it a D12. And hope that we don't forget. Limits don't matter, but we will use Telescoping Bow, and we're going to use it as a D8 because we know that we are shutting that down, essentially. Even though we're not choosing to shut it down, like the limit, we're not triggering the limit, the sort of story happens that this is what that's going to happen with, or that's what's going to happen. They have Focus SFX on the bow. In a pool including a Telescoping Bow die, replace 2 dice of equal steps with a die of with a single die that's been stepped up. We're going to use Combat Expert here, which is another D8. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll add in the D8 for Combat Expert, but then I'm going to take advantage of the Focus SFX, and I'm going to combine 2 of the D8s into 1 D10. So back it up. So altogether we have a D8, a D4, a D12, and a D10 for Gambit to sort of throw his bow like a javelin at the Alpha Sentinel. Did I include the stunt die? I didn't include the stunt die, did I? Solo, distinction. So let's include the stunt die. What do you say? Since that's kind of the cool thing that we're doing. D12 because we combine the 2 D8s. Yeah, I think I got this right. That sounds good. Well, we rolled a 1 on the D4, but we got a decent roll there. So we've got 2 8s. So we could do a 16 if we add the 2 8s with a D4, a D12 effect die, which would be really, really awesome. And we did succeed, so we don't know if we succeeded, but we probably succeeded, right? But I don't want to forget about adding into the Doom pool if I do end up failing. So let's do that. Let's do a total of 16 with a D12 effect of physical stress on the Sentinel. Okay, so the Sentinel gets a reaction roll here and is going to throw in the solo die, which is a D8. Superhuman Durability is the obvious one, right? Well, let's do the distinction. They have 2 distinctions. They have Superior Model and Mutant Hunter. And I think last time we had talked about describing the fact that their Superior Model sort of relates to them having better armor, being more used to fighting mutants. In this setting, most of the canon mutants and heroes have either been imprisoned or are missing in action or defeated, sent to another dimension, something like that. So they're very good at what they do, the Sentinels, by this point, because they've fought a lot of different heroes. So we're going to add the Superior Model distinction in to represent that fact. Now for Superhuman Durability, that's a D10. And then, excuse me, turning my phone on silent so we don't get a ding. D10 for Superhuman Durability. SFX doesn't matter. The limit doesn't matter. I'm not going to throw anything in from the Doom pool, which means it is unlikely but possible that we will get a 16 or better, or a 17, because I guess active player takes the ties. Well, that's a 16, and it feels like a shame to let it go. I don't normally roll like this. So options. I could spend a Doom die, one of my D8s, to keep the D8, that's the 3, in which case I would have a total of 19, but my effect die would just be a D4. If I did that, though, I could spend another Doom die and sort of counterattack and apply the reaction stress onto Gambit. So the Sentinel wouldn't get hit and Gambit would take stress. Now, I don't think you can justify physical stress in what we described, except maybe if you said there was some counterfire or something. But you could have it maybe as emotional stress, like he's starting to be intimidated. I don't know if I want to go that far down the road, though, because I really like him using his bow as a javelin. So I will keep it as a tie. We'll go total 16 with a D8. And we'll let him succeed, which gives our Alpha Sentinel a D12 physical stress. So this is a very, very good hit on Gambit. We are almost taking the Sentinel out in one go. So let's zoom out and scroll over just a bit. So Gambit has acted, and Gambit will choose Kurt to go next. Nightcrawler. And Nightcrawler, for his action, the SWAT team is already taken care of. Seems like we got to hurt the Sentinel. So I think what he's going to do, the javelin that Gambit threw hit the Alpha Sentinel right in the shoulder, like in this sort of joint area, and kind of cracked open the armor. So Nightcrawler is going to teleport to the shoulder of the Sentinel, and he has a sword, and he's going to just start jamming into the hole, the wound that's already there, and try to make things even worse. Try to inflict even more physical stress on the Sentinel. Step up that D12. Oh, let's write that on his card. Step up the D12 to a step it up, and then when you step it up past the D12, the Sentinel will be taken out. So D12, whoops, P-stress. All right. So I think that's his plan. So we will assemble Nightcrawler's pool for this. So he is acting, he's acting solo. He's certainly not coordinating with Gambit, even though I could see buddy action applying here. There was no real intentional coordination. Should we do a buddy? Is he doing something in tandem with someone else? I mean, kind of. Yeah, alright, let's go buddy die. It's not his best die, but I guess it makes the most sense if we're following the rules. So D6 for buddy die, and then we're going to go swashbuckler at a D8, because that's pretty much what he's going to do here. Teleport as a D8. We have step up teleport by 1 for a single action, and then take that die as physical stress for the BAMF boost. I don't think that's necessary to do just yet. Hold on tight, teleport yourself and one other character. Nope. Weapon is the D8 for the sword. And then we have focus on his sword as well, just like Gambit did on his bow, which means we can combine 2 dice of the same size and step them up. So we will do that. We'll replace 2 D8s with a D10. And then we will throw in Combat Expert. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm going to forget to add the D12 stress that the Sentinel has. And you were almost right. But I remembered, I had a little hint from my buddy in the back there, Mr. Summers. He's really good at fighting Sentinels, and he would not let that happen. So he's going to make sure that we do that. So I'm going to make sure we do that. So we're going to add in the Sentinel's physical stress, which you can do. You add in the opponent's complications of stress. That's kind of how we messed up the SWAT team, confused them out. But then that takes care of everything. And here we go. Another not bad. So one thing to note is Marvel Heroic or Cortex Prime doesn't really matter. If you deal, if this succeeds, it doesn't matter what size my effect die is, because even if it's a D4, it's going to step up the D12 that the Sentinel has, and that will stress them out. So I don't need to worry so much about what size die I use for my effect. So I want to make the biggest total I can. And I can make a 14. I could even make a 19, which is almost certainly going to work. He's got a plot point. Let's do it. Let's ensure that this works. So Kurt's going to spend a plot point, and he's going to keep the 7 and the 7 and the 5 as well for a total of 19. And he's just going to grab the D8 effect there. It doesn't matter. He could grab the D6 as well. I guess it can matter. As we sort of alluded to confusingly last time, if you fail on the reaction roll, but your effect die is larger than the incoming effect die, then you actually do step it down. So it does kind of matter what Kurt's effect die is. So, you know, we'll select one, but I tend to think that they're not going to get, the Sentinel is not going to get a better total than this. Reaction roll for the Sentinel. /R, he's solo. Superior model, I'm going to grab superior model, but this time I'm going to do it as a D4 because I think he is proving to not so much be the superior model. And because I don't have plot points, I'm going to step up one of the D8s to a D10 in the Doom pool. And then durability. Superhuman durability. Area attack doesn't matter. Limit doesn't matter. So yeah, so that's that. So no way that we're realistically going to get a 19. We could spend a Doom die depending on what gets rolled, but it's unlikely. Yeah. So we've got a 7, a 2, and a 3. So we're going to fail. And we're going to fail pretty hard. But I upgraded one of my Doom dice to become a D10, which means I can now keep a D10 as a sort of counterattack. And that's what I'm going to do to represent the fact that Nightcrawler teleports to the shoulder, jams his sword down in there, and is like doing all kinds of damage. And the Sentinel is definitely like this is the last throes of the Sentinel's, you know, lifespan or whatever. But as it's going out, there's sort of this electronic countermeasure on the Sentinel's chassis that zaps Kurt with the last bit of energy that the Sentinel has. It's sort of like kind of like an anti-theft device, right? Like you touch it and you get zapped. I think Batman had it on his cowl in one of the movies, and probably Iron Man does too. I don't know. It seems like a cool thing to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go total of 9. Okay. And then we're going to go D10 effect. So we're going to add the 7, excuse me. Yeah, we're going to add the 7 and the 2 for a total of 9. And then we're going to keep the D10 effect. And then we're going to spend the D10 from the Doom Pool that we just created last turn. And we're going to use that to inflict physical stress on Kurt as a D10. Come on, there you go. Cool. That feels fair. So the Sentinel is now out. If I paste, does it paste over here? Yeah, it does. So the Sentinel is now out. We'll put that over the solo die. They've been stressed out. So the only one left, the only enemy, the only opposition on the field is the mutant Hound. And I was thinking about this. Blowing up the Sentinel makes sense. That's an X-Men thing to do. And taking out the SWAT anti-mutant team in terms of, you know, the confusion and stuff, that's an X-Men thing to do. But we do have a mutant, and the mutant is sort of brainwashed. So I tend to think that they are going to try, the heroes here are going to try to sort of bring the mutant Hound to her senses, like break the conditioning, the psychic or the mental conditioning, right? So we've just taken out everyone else, and it's just the mutant Hound. So I think this will be our route. So we'll have Psylocke go next. So that was Kurt. Yeah, and now we'll have Psylocke go next. So Psylocke, if you remember, was kind of off in the shadows, and she is going to step out of the shadows, and the mutant Hound is all alone, and is going to kind of try to do like the motherly thing, right? And, you know, it's okay. I don't remember. She's got the UK accent, but I'm not going to attempt that again because I don't know any good words. What would he like a nanny? Is this like a nanny situation? I don't know. It's too much for me to think about right now. I'm just going to narrate it. But Betsy's going to come out and basically try to reason, reach out, build a bridge with the mutant Hound. And she's going to do that by sort of saying, like, it's okay now. You don't have to, you're free. You don't have to be a part of this anymore. And so she's going to try to, so I guess it would be, she could target the psychic resistance die, which would make a lot of sense, taking that die away, because that's probably going to work against any sort of coaxing going on. So I think that's the first step that we're going to go with, is Psylocke is going to target the psychic resistance trait die in hopes of getting a, if you match it or have above it with your effect die, it goes away. Or I'm going to take that back. If you have a larger die, it goes away on a success. If you match it or you have less, you step it down. So it would become a psychic resistance D6 if she succeeds. So let's see how that works. She's definitely operating solo. Psylocke is. Oops. 1d8. And I think, you know, trained by the hand, body swapped, posh, and we have dystopian night and urban ruins. What distinction makes the most sense here? Maybe trained by the hand in the sense of, if I recall correctly, the hand is almost like a cult situation. So I think I'll use trained by the hand as a D8 to represent the fact that Psylocke knows what it's like to sort of be in that situation. Yeah, that sounds good. And then this is telepath. Like, this is definitely what that is. So telepathy, D8, I think is pretty straightforward. Assassin training doesn't really come into play here. combat expert, vehicle expert, covert expert, and acrobatic expert. Oof. Do any of these really matter? I mean, covert, we're talking brainwashing, one sort of assassin to another. I can see covert expert maybe coming into play, because covert expert probably includes like espionage and interrogation and that sort of thing. I wouldn't say it's a full-on psych expert. I guess psych expert makes the most sense, but she's not a psych expert. I'm gonna allow covert expert. Yeah, I'm gonna allow covert expert. We're gonna let that go. And then she doesn't have anything else going on, and there's no complications or anything on the Hound. Not a bad roll. So to be a total of 15, I guess. With a D8 effect. And the mutant hound gets to resist, or react, I should say. So they have a mutant hound die, and I gotta be honest, I don't remember exactly what I was thinking when I made these data files. I think it was almost a year ago. But I know that there's different kind of characters that you can make in Cortex Prime. I think it describes them as like major, minor. No, there's two different kind of GMCs that are majors, and then mobs or something. I don't specifically remember, but I know sometimes they get a die that is associated with just what they do. So mutant hound D8 in this case. It's not a solo die. That's going to be the next thing, but it's sort of to represent everything that a specialty character. I think that's what they're called. So this is like their specialty die. So anything that has to do with being a mutant hound, you can use as a D8. And in this case, being a mutant hound means resisting the influence of mutants who are, trying to psychically mess with them. So we're going to include that D8, and then also the solo D8, and then the D8 for psychic resistance. And I have the Doom dice, but I have this feeling that I want to do like a cool feedback thing if this works. So I'm going to save my 2 D8s in the Doom pool. And this is the reaction roll. It's close. I can do a 14 with a D8. So let's have a psychic. Remember I was talking last time I wanted to have like a telepathic like duel. So let's fail, but then we'll spend a Doom pool just like we did on Nightcrawler, and we'll deal mental stress back to Psylocke. So we'll go with a total of 11, I guess, with the D8 effect. So the mutant hound loses this action. So we are going to just put a 6 over top of their psychic resistance as a reminder. It's no longer a D8, it's a D6. But also I'm going to spend a Doom Pool die to do the mental stress. So there's some feedback to Betsy, and it's a D8. So this is representing the fact that Psylocke is reaching out, and she succeeds in establishing this link, but the mutant hound, almost in sort of that conditioned response, like lashes back out with her own psychic abilities, telepathic abilities, which kind of stresses Psylocke out. There's like some feedback. I like that. This is totally what I was hoping would happen, so we're going to roll with it. So that was the action and the reaction. It's been resolved. That's Betsy's turn. So now the last person to go is the mutant hound. So then the question is, what is the mutant hound going to do? Keep lashing out at Psylocke? I mean, that's the only threat, really. Or is the mutant hound going to try to escape? Everyone else, it's used to having a master, and there isn't a master there anymore. It was like the team, like the handler on the team. So I think the mutant hound is going to just try to do more stress, telepathic stress to Psylocke, because I think that's what makes the most sense. So we'll do that. So this will be to step up Betsy's mental stress. /R 1d8 for Mutant Hound, plus 1d8 for Solo. And we're going to throw in not psychic resistance, that doesn't make sense, and not superhuman senses, but we'll throw in Betsy's mental stress, which is another d8. Yeah. Maybe shaving? Was that the secret to not rolling so many hitches? Is having less facial hair? You were with me last time. I was rolling ones. Didn't I literally say hitches for days? And now I'm like hitting all the max. Feels good. Okay, so so doing that is a total of 16 with a d8 effect to step up Betsy's mental stress. So Psylocke's gonna get to react. She is solo, very much solo. This is a mental thing. Even if the other guys were around, they're not helping. Distinction, maybe trained by the hand again, because I feel like they could make a connection there. Telepathy is going to be a d8, or actually she's got psychic resistance, so d10. Now they do have the SFX, or she has the SFX psychic feedback on a reaction against a psychic attack action. This is that. Inflict psychic stress with your effect die at no plot point cost, or spend a plot point to step it up by 1. So when she does the counter-attack thing, she doesn't have to spend a plot point to do it, but if she wants to, she can spend a plot point to even step it up. So she gets to do the sort of counter-attack thing specifically with psychic stuff for free, which is nice. So do I want to do that? That could be interesting. We'll have to see how it goes. Assassin training, again, doesn't really help. And I'm not even going to allow Covert Expert at this point. This is very much a telepathy situation. Though you know what I will do, which could be cool, and I don't think I've ever spent a plot point for this, but I'm going to spend a plot point to keep a second trait die from her telepath set. So I'm going to keep telepathy. And I'll spend a plot point, spend one of her plot points to do that. That is one of the things you can spend plot points to do in Marvel Heroic. So this is the reaction roll. And she needs to be a 16, and she cannot do it. She cannot really do it. She's got that one plot point. But I could use the psychic feedback. So she fails. So let's do the mechanics here. A total of 14 with D10 effect. So she fails. I wrote down for the, I'm just seeing up here for the Mutant Hound, I didn't write D8 effect, I wrote with 18 effect. That was confusing me as I'm reading that. So two things kind of happen here. One, Betsy loses, so Betsy's going to take the D8 stress, but because Betsy's effect die is a D10, it's going to step the D8 down to D6, so she's going to take D6 mental stress instead, which is still just enough to step up her mental stress to D10. However, having said that, for free, she is going to deal her effect die as mental stress, right? Does it say it has to be mental stress? Inflict psychic stress back onto the Mutant Hound. So the Mutant Hound now has D10. Come on. Mental stress. And stress. So, and she gets to do that for free. Betsy gets to do that for free. So now we have a situation where the Mutant Hound, who has the specialty die of a D8, has had stress up past D8, and I'm not going to dig into my book because I'm fairly certain about this in Marvel Heroic, but if you go above that D8, that is what, kind of like with the mob dice, like with the SWAT team, you just need to go above a D8, and that stresses out one of their dice. the specialty characters, you just got to go above their specialty rating. So this stresses out the mutant Hound. So I think the best representation here is there is this sort of psychic contest of telepathic wills at the same time that Psylocke is trying to talk the Hound down. And I think ultimately there was success. I think the Hound pushed, or well, really Betsy pushed and the Hound pushed back, and then the Hound pushed and Betsy pushed back. And I think at this point the psychic conditioning has been broken. Oh, I guess. Yeah. The psychic conditioning has sort of been broken, and the Hound kind of is like in a daze, like waking up, like what's going on? The last thing I remember was Sentinels, and she sees the Sentinel that's still smoking over there, and Nightcrawler's probably just like hanging out on it, his feet dangling as he's just kind of sitting there, maybe picking his teeth. Whoa, I hit my desk. Picking his teeth with his rapier, hello, Fräulein. That sort of a situation, because I think that'd be a very curt thing to do. And so that takes care of the mutant Hound. So now the problem before the heroes is how are they going to get back, and what is going to become of this new ally, or is this going to be an ally? Is this ally going to try to convince them to stay? Because the world needs them right now. The Sentinels have been taking over, and they are definitely capable of, proving their own worth against these enemies. So that's sort of the dramatic cliffhanger that we'll leave it on. So that's going to be the end of the scene, and the end of this whole little arc, this whole little story, this example tutorial playthrough. If I messed anything up, I will put a comment in the description. I am not going to spend 2 hours trying to figure out how to do subtitles in the proper sections. I think I did most of my stuff right, but if I have any notes, I'll put it right at the top in the description section to clarify. So sort of check that before you click away from the video. Other than that, we'll call it the scene. Well, thanks for joining us again. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned a little bit about Cortex Prime and Marvel Heroic between the last video and this one, and I hope you enjoyed how we ended the scene. If you like this kind of video, these sort of playthroughs, then I encourage you to let me know in the comments and just say, hey, do this more, and I will do more of them. Again, I'll point out that the marvelplotpoints.com website is a great resource. It's where I got these data files for the heroes. Also, cortexrpg.com is the website for Cortex Prime, and on there they have their Discord link, and the Discord is a great place. We have a lot of folks there, knowledgeable. And we just played Marvel Heroic last night. I just ran a game. So some folks are more Marvel Heroic. Some folks have experience with some of the other Cortex games in the past. Lots of folks looking at the new stuff that's just come out in the last few months. A lot of folks interested in the Dragon Prince Tales of Xadia. I always take my time because I always feel like I'm going to say it wrong, and I don't think I've said it wrong yet. Knock on wood. Either way, I definitely encourage you, if you haven't already, come check it out, see what's going on, and see if there might be a game you can join, there might be a game you can run, and yeah, we would appreciate it. But again, thanks so much for joining us. From Scott and I both, we wish you the best, and we'll see you next time, true believer. Excelsior.